A bone-shaking explosion erupts, rattling the very core of the earth. Superman, Hulk, and the Avengers are about to collide in a battle that will test not just their strength, but the darkest secrets buried deep within them. A confession so shocking, it will leave the world speechless and change their destinies forever. As these mighty heroes stand face to face, the true measure of power will be revealed. But there's one question that will send chills down their spines. What if the greatest threat lies within their own ranks? The ultimate showdown begins. The sky cracked open with an earth-shattering boom. A pulse of raw energy coursed through the atmosphere, setting the air ablaze with a fiery glow. Superman hovered high above the earth, eyes glowing with determination, while Hulk stood tall on the cracked ground below, muscles rippling with uncontrollable rage. In the distance, the Avengers were assembling, their silhouettes cutting through the chaos. They had no idea what they were walking into. The battle had begun. But this was not just another fight. This was a war for everything. A war for the fate of the world. And it was about to get personal. Do you feel that? Superman's voice crackled through the tension, directed at Hulk, but his eyes were scanning the horizon, anticipating the coming assault. This isn't just about strength anymore. It's about the truth. Hulk snarled, a guttural growl escaping his throat as his green skin flexed. Truth, he thundered, smashing his fist into the ground. I don't care about truth. I care about smashing. And in that moment, the ground beneath them trembled. But it wasn't just the weight of their power. It was the arrival of something much more dangerous. The Avengers, led by Iron Man, Captain America, and Black Widow, charged forward, weapons ready to defend the world they had sworn to protect. But none of them were prepared for the revelations that would follow. I don't think they understand, Superman muttered, his gaze lingering on the approaching heroes. None of them do. Iron Man's voice broke through the tension. You're not alone in this fight, Kal-El, he said, hovering above the ground in his suit, eyes scanning the situation. But we need to know everything. Now, Superman stood silent for a moment, and then the world seemed to hold its breath. In that single second, everything that had been hidden came pouring out. The confession that would change everything. There's a reason I've been keeping my distance, Superman finally spoke, his voice steady, though the weight of his words threatened to crush him. I've known the truth about Hulk, about all of you. But now, it's too late to turn back. Hulk narrowed his eyes, his rage shifting to confusion. What truth? What are you talking about? Superman looked at the Avengers, the weight of the world pressing down on him. The battle you're all fighting, it was never about saving the world. It was about keeping something worse from coming into existence. A power greater than anything we've ever faced. The Avengers exchanged uneasy glances. Captain America's hand instinctively went to the shield on his back, the weight of the conversation settling over them. What are you saying, Superman? Iron Man asked, his voice laced with suspicion. Are you telling us that we've been fighting the wrong fight? Superman sighed deeply, his gaze drifting to the horizon as if searching for a sign that this moment wasn't real. But it was. And the truth, once buried, was now unleashed. You think you know who your enemies are, he continued, his voice barely a whisper, but carrying the weight of 1,000 battles. You think you know what you're up against. But what if the real enemy is one of us? What if the person standing right beside you is the very thing you need to fear? The Avengers froze, confusion, anger, and disbelief flashing across their faces. They had faced gods, aliens, and monsters, but they had never faced something like this. Never had they imagined that the real threat wasn't coming from an external force, but from within their own ranks. Are you saying one of us is the enemy? Captain America asked, his voice low but steady. Superman's eyes hardened. I'm saying it's worse than that. One of us is hiding a power so dangerous that it could bring the end of everything we know. And I've been trying to protect you all by keeping it a secret. As the silence hung thick in the air, Hulk stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the Avengers. You're playing games, Superman, he growled. You think I don't understand the stakes? You think I don't know about the risks of power? Superman took a deep breath, his eyes scanning Hulk's face, as if searching for something. "No, Hulk," he said softly, his voice filled with regret. "I'm not talking about the risks. I'm talking about the truth of who we are, who you are." The words hit like a punch to the gut. Hulk staggered backward, the ground cracking beneath him, confusion and anger fighting for control. "You're saying I'm hiding something?" Hulk growled, his fists clenching. "You think I'm the one you need to fear?" Superman shook his head. "Not you, Hulk. It's not you. It's someone else. Someone you trust. Someone who's been by your side this entire time." Iron Man's eyes narrowed. "Who?" Superman hesitated, then met Iron Man's gaze. "The one who's always been behind the scenes. The one who's been pulling the strings. The one who's been manipulating us all." The Avengers looked around, uncertainty rising. But it wasn't until Superman took a deep breath and said the name that the true horror of the situation settled in. It's Steve Rogers," Superman whispered, barely audible. But the weight of his words echoed through the hearts of every hero in the room. Captain America's face went pale, his shield trembling in his hands. What are you talking about?" Superman's expression hardened. "You know I couldn't tell you. But now, you need to understand. Steve Rogers, Captain America, is not the hero you think he is. He's the one who's been hiding the truth, and he's the one who's been keeping us all in the dark." The words rang out like a thunderclap, each one louder than the last. The Avengers stared at Superman, the weight of the confession sinking in. The truth was out there, and it was far more dangerous than any of them could have imagined. The betrayal unveiled. The room was silent. The Avengers stood frozen, their eyes locked on Superman as the weight of his words settled over them. Captain America's face was pale, his grip tightening on his shield, as if he could hold the entire universe at bay with a single motion. You're telling us that Steve, Captain America, is behind all of this?" Iron Man asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "You expect us to believe that?" Superman didn't flinch. His eyes remained steady, locked onto Captain America. "I know it sounds impossible, Tony. But think about it. Every time we've fought, every time we've been on the edge of victory or defeat, there's always been something or someone, keeping us from truly winning. Someone was manipulating the outcomes. The reason we could never finish what we started. It's Steve. He's been pulling the strings from the beginning." Captain America took a step forward, his face hardening. "That's enough, Kal-El. You don't know what you're talking about. I've fought beside you. We've been through countless battles together. I've given everything for this world." Superman shook his head, his voice heavy with regret. "I know, Steve. And that's what makes this so hard. But everything you've done, every sacrifice you've made, it's all been part of the plan. The plan to keep us distracted, to keep us from the truth." Iron Man crossed his arms, his mind working overtime. "But why? What's the end game here? Why would Steve, of all people, do this? He's one of the greatest heroes the world has ever known." Superman looked at Iron Man, his eyes dark with the burden of the knowledge he carried. "Because Steve is hiding something. Something so powerful that if it's ever unleashed, it could destroy everything we've ever fought for. He's protecting it. And that's why we've never been able to defeat our real enemy. We've always been chasing shadows, Tony. And Steve's been in the shadows the whole time." The Avengers exchanged uneasy glances, their minds racing. Black Widow took a step forward, her eyes narrowing in suspicion. "What are you talking about, Clark? What's this thing Steve's been hiding?" Superman's jaw tightened as he looked away, his eyes searching the skies for a moment before returning to the group. "I can't explain it all now. But the truth is simple. Steve has been guarding a secret power. A power that could bend reality itself. And he's been using it to keep us in the dark. I think he's been trying to protect us from it, but at the same time, control us with it. Control us." Black Widow repeated, her voice a mix of confusion and anger. "How could he do that?" Superman's gaze hardened as he spoke again. "You've all felt it. The times when we were so close to victory, only for something to go wrong at the last second. It wasn't random. It wasn't chance. It was Steve. He's been using his position, his leadership, to steer us away from the truth, to keep us from finding what's hidden. And now it's too late. I don't believe this, Captain America muttered, his face twisted in disbelief. I've sacrificed everything. You think I've been lying to you? Superman's expression softened. No, Steve. I think you believe what you're doing is right. But the truth is, you've been doing what you thought was necessary to protect the world from itself. The power you're hiding, it's not just dangerous for us. It's dangerous for everyone. Then why didn't you tell us sooner? Captain America snapped, his voice rising. Why keep us in the dark all this time? Superman's voice dropped to a low whisper. Because if I told you, it would have destroyed everything. I couldn't risk it. I had to be sure, and now I am. The power Steve's hiding, it's connected to something far bigger than any of us. Just then, a sudden, deafening roar shattered the tension, followed by the ground trembling beneath their feet. Hulk's massive form appeared, eyes burning with fury, his fists clenched. Enough talk. Hulk thundered, shaking the ground as he stomped forward. Hulk's done listening. I want answers. Superman turned to face the raging Hulk, his eyes steady. I know you're angry, Bruce, but this is bigger than all of us. We have to stop Steve before it's too late. Hulk's chest heaved as he growled. What's the plan, Superman? How do we stop him? Before Superman could respond, a dark figure appeared from the shadows, stepping into the fray. It was Steve Rogers, Captain America. His shield gleamed under the low light, and his eyes were filled with a cold, unwavering resolve. I see you've figured it out, Steve said, his voice calm but filled with a dangerous edge. You think you've uncovered the truth. But you're wrong, Clark. You don't understand the full picture. None of you do. Iron Man stepped forward, his voice cutting through the tension. What is this, Steve? What's going on? What have you been hiding from us all this time? Captain America's face hardened, and for the first time, the weight of his secrets seemed to settle on him. You're right about one thing. There is something I've been hiding, but it's not what you think. The power I've been guarding, it's not meant to control you or destroy you. It's meant to protect you from something far worse than anything you've ever faced. Superman narrowed his eyes. Protect us? From what? Steve's gaze turned cold as he spoke, his voice low but filled with conviction. From what's coming, from what's already here. The hidden enemy. The atmosphere crackled with tension. The Avengers stood facing Captain America, whose usually unwavering confidence now felt like a facade. The weight of the truth was too much to ignore, and every hero in the room felt the burden of the moment. Steve Rogers stood in the center, his shield held tightly in his hands, his jaw clenched as if he were preparing for the inevitable backlash. The room was silent, every eye fixed on him, waiting for an explanation that no one had been prepared for. Enough secret, Steve. Iron Man's voice cut through the silence, his eyes filled with both disbelief and anger. What's going on? What's this power you've been guarding? And why the hell didn't you tell us? Steve's gaze swept across the room, his expression hardening. You think this is easy for me? He snapped, his voice carrying the weight of years spent hiding the truth. I've been keeping you all in the dark to protect you, to protect the world. Superman took a step forward, his eyes intense. You're protecting us from what? What could be worse than the enemy we've already faced? Captain America's grip tightened on his shield, his knuckles turning white. You think I've been keeping you from the truth because I enjoy it? He asked, his voice filled with frustration. I've been trying to keep you safe from the real enemy, the one you don't even know exists. Iron Man raised an eyebrow. A new enemy? Are we supposed to believe that, after everything we faced, there's someone worse than Thanos, worse than Ultron, worse than anything we've ever fought? Steve nodded grimly. Yes, worse, much worse. Who? Black Widow asked, stepping forward. Who is this enemy, and why are you the only one who knows about it? Steve's eyes flickered to Superman, then back to the Avengers. Because I've seen it. I've felt it. And it's not just some alien or machine bent on destruction. It's something beyond what any of us can comprehend. It's a power that can warp reality itself. The room fell into a heavy silence. The idea of a power that could manipulate reality felt impossible to grasp, but the truth was undeniable. They were standing on the edge of something far more dangerous than anything they had ever fought before. "What do you mean, warp reality?" Iron Man asked, his voice tinged with suspicion. "Are you telling me there's a godlike force out there, and you've been hiding it from us this whole time?" Steve's face twisted with a mixture of regret and anger. "It's not a godlike force. It's a being, a force of nature that has the ability to bend the very fabric of existence. It's been hiding in the shadows for centuries, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself." Superman's eyes widened. "And you think it's already here?" Captain America nodded. "I don't think. I know. It's been getting closer. And the closer it gets, the more the world begins to unravel. You've seen it, strange occurrences, moments where time and space seem to fold in on themselves. This is just the beginning." Hulk growled, his fists clenching as he stepped forward. "So what? We sit back and wait for it to destroy us?" Steve shook his head. "No. We have to stop it before it's too late. But we can't do it alone. That's why I've been keeping you all close, to prepare for the moment when the world needs us most." Iron Man scoffed, shaking his head in disbelief. "Prepare? By lying to us? By keeping us in the dark?" Steve looked at Tony, his gaze sharp. "It wasn't about lying. It was about protecting you. The enemy I'm talking about is not something we can fight with brute force. It's not something we can stop with weapons or shields. This power, it feeds on fear, on chaos. It thrives in the darkness of our own minds." The Avengers looked at each other, the weight of Steve's words sinking in. They had fought countless battles together, but nothing had ever felt as real, as dangerous, as this. "We can't fight something like that," Black Widow said softly, the gravity of the situation beginning to settle over her. "If it feeds on our fear, if it manipulates reality itself, how do we even begin to fight it?" Superman stepped forward, his eyes filled with determination. "We start by trusting each other. We start by fighting the only way we know how, together." Steve gave a small, bitter smile. "Together? That's the one thing I've been trying to keep you from, Clark. Because the moment you trust each other, you'll be vulnerable. And vulnerability is the very thing this enemy will exploit." Iron Man threw his hands up in exasperation. "So what, we just give up? We let it win?" Steve's voice softened. "No. We fight, but we fight smart. We can't let this thing get a hold of us. If we do, the world will fall, and so will every one of us." Just as the conversation reached its peak, a distant, thunderous roar echoed across the battlefield. The ground shook violently, sending cracks rippling through the earth. The Avengers turned toward the sound, their hearts racing. Something was coming, and it wasn't just the enemy Steve had warned them about. This was the beginning of the end, the final revelation. The roar that shook the earth grew louder, closer, until it felt as though the ground beneath their feet was alive. The Avengers turned to face the source of the sound, their muscles tensed, ready for whatever was about to emerge. Their minds raced, but one question dominated them all: what was coming? Superman's eyes scanned the horizon, his senses heightened as he searched for any sign of what they were up against. He could feel it, the air crackling with an unnatural energy. "It's here," he said, his voice tight. "It's already among us." Iron Man clenched his fists, activating his suit's defenses. "Well, if it's here, then we better be ready." Steve Rogers looked out across the battlefield, his shield still gripped tightly in his hands. "We don't know what we're facing, but we've got to be ready for anything. This isn't just a fight for survival, it's a fight for the world." The roar echoed again, even louder this time, and suddenly the ground split open. From the crack in the earth, a dark mist poured out, swirling with an otherworldly force. The Avengers recoiled as the mist formed into a towering figure, a silhouette of shifting shadows and light, an entity that seemed to defy all logic. Black Widow's eyes widened. "What is that?" Steve stepped forward, his voice calm but filled with dread. "This is it. This is the power I've been trying to protect you from." The figure slowly took shape, a figure that none of them had ever seen before. Its form constantly shifted, as if it were made of liquid darkness, but its presence was undeniable, overpowering, consuming. Superman's eyes narrowed. It's not just a being, it's an entity. A force of nature, like Steve said. Tony Stark's voice crackled through his helmet, filled with tension. "We've faced gods, aliens, and monsters, but nothing like this. How do we fight it?" Steve turned toward his team, his face solemn. "We don't fight it like we would any other enemy. We fight it with everything we have, but we do it together. We have to use our greatest weapon, unity." The entity took a slow step forward, its form shifting with each movement. As it moved closer, it seemed to warp the very fabric of reality itself. Time bent. Space twisted. The air felt thick with an oppressive force, suffocating and unrelenting. Hulk's eyes flashed with fury as he slammed his fists together. "Hulk smash!" he bellowed, charging at the figure. But as he struck, his fists passed through the entity, the darkness swirling around them without leaving a mark. "Impossible!" Hulk roared, stumbling back. "It's not real." Steve's face darkened. "It's not about the physical. It's about the mind. This thing doesn't exist in our world the way we know it. It exists in the cracks, in the spaces between. It feeds on our fear, our doubts." "Then let's give it something to fear," Iron Man said, firing up his repulsors. He charged, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts. But they too passed through the entity, unable to do any damage. The figure only grew stronger, its form flickering with a dark energy. Superman flew into the air, his eyes glowing as he gathered all his strength. "We need to strike at its core," he shouted. "Focus on disrupting its energy." But just as Superman prepared to strike, the entity let out an ear-piercing shriek, a sound that seemed to cut through their very souls. The Avengers recoiled, their minds assaulted by visions of their greatest fears, memories of their past failures, their doubts, and their darkest moments. For a brief moment, each of them faltered. The entity fed on their hesitation, growing stronger with every ounce of fear it absorbed. Steve Rogers was the first to snap back, his expression hardening. "Don't let it control you," he shouted to his team. "Focus. We have to face our fears, not run from them." Hulk grunted, shaking his head as if fighting off the dark whispers in his mind. "Hulk no afraid," he growled, charging once again, this time more determined. Iron Man followed suit, his mind racing as he recalibrated his suit's weapons. "Focus on the core," he muttered to himself, charging forward. Superman hovered above them, his eyes focused on the entity. "It's feeding on our fear, but we can stop it. If we stand united, we can break its hold." And that was the key. The Avengers, once fractured by secrets and doubts, now stood together, their resolve stronger than ever. They focused their minds, facing their fears head-on, refusing to let the entity control them. The energy from their combined will surge through them, and with one final, coordinated strike, the entity began to crack. Reality itself seemed to bend and fracture as the entity's form shattered into nothingness. The ground trembled one last time, and then silence. The Avengers stood in the aftermath, their bodies bruised, their minds exhausted. But they had succeeded. The entity was gone. Superman turned to Steve, his face softening. "You did the right thing, Steve. We would have never known the truth if you hadn't stepped forward." Steve nodded, his face weary but relieved. "I did what I had to do, but I couldn't have done it without you all. We did this together." Iron Man clapped Steve on the back. "Well, that was one hell of a ride. Next time, let's try to avoid all the mind-bending, reality-warping threats, okay?" The group shared a tired but knowing smile. They had faced their darkest fears, come together in the face of impossible odds, and had emerged victorious. But as they stood together, the world safe for now, they all knew one thing for certain. As long as they were united, no enemy, no matter how powerful, could ever tear them apart. The aftermath and the new threat. The battle was over, but the world felt different. The air was still, almost as if reality itself was catching its breath. The Avengers stood, their bodies battered, their minds scarred by what they had just experienced. The entity, the force that had nearly torn them apart, was gone, but its impact remained. Superman hovered above them, his eyes scanning the horizon. "We've done it," he said, his voice a mixture of relief and disbelief. "We've stopped it." Iron Man stood beside him, his armor scorched and dented. "Yeah, but at what cost?" he muttered, looking at the broken ground beneath him. "We barely made it out. We don't even know what that thing really was." Steve Rogers stood with his shield lowered, his expression thoughtful. "We may never know the full extent of what we just fought. But we know one thing for sure. The world isn't as safe as we thought. And we're not done yet." Hulk stood tall, his massive frame still trembling slightly from the battle. "Hulk smash, but not this time," he said, his voice low. "We won." Superman nodded, his expression grave. "The world may seem quiet now, but there's still a greater force out there. We've only just scratched the surface." "Yeah," Iron Man said, his voice darkening. "There's something bigger than we've ever imagined waiting in the wings. And we need to be ready for it." The Avengers turned to face one another, their unity stronger than ever. They had fought their way through the darkness, faced unimaginable horrors, and still come out on top. But the truth was clear. They were just a step ahead. The battle might be over, but the war was far from won. Steve Rogers stepped forward, his voice firm. "We don't know what's next, but we'll face it together. We've learned something important today, that no matter how dark it gets, we stand as one." Iron Man raised his fist, a small smile creeping onto his face. "I'll drink to that. Next round's on me." Hulk raised his hands, a grin forming despite the exhaustion. "Hulk ready for round 2. Superman smiled, a rare moment of peace in his eyes. "We're not just heroes. We're a family. And as long as we stand together, there's nothing we can't face." But as the Avengers began to regroup, a strange disturbance rippled through the air, faint at first, like a whisper in the wind. The ground beneath their feet trembled once more, not from an explosion, but from an ominous force that had not yet revealed itself. The Avengers froze, their instincts kicking in. "What is that?" Black Widow whispered, her eyes scanning the surroundings. Superman's eyes narrowed, his senses tingling with unease. "It's not over. The battle we just fought, it was only a distraction. The real threat, it's still out there. And it's coming." Iron Man's voice crackled through his helmet. "What do you mean?" "We just defeated that monster. There's nothing left." Superman's face grew dark, his expression filled with dread. "There's something much worse than that thing. Something that's been pulling the strings all along." The Avengers turned to Steve Rogers, their faces filled with questions. "Steve," Iron Man said urgently, "what's going on? What aren't you telling us?" Steve stood silent for a moment, the weight of the truth pressing down on him. Then he spoke, his voice steady but heavy. "It's not just one enemy. It's a network, a force that's been manipulating everything from the shadows. And it's much more powerful than any of us imagined." Just then, a massive shadow loomed over them. A figure dark, menacing, and unfamiliar rose from the ground, the sky flickering with dark energy. The Avengers braced themselves, knowing that the fight was far from over. Superman looked at his team, determination filling his eyes. "We've faced the impossible before, and we'll do it again, together." And just like that, the Avengers knew this was only the beginning. The true enemy had not yet revealed itself, but they were ready. They had survived the darkness, and now they were prepared for whatever was coming next.